a little bit later in the show. We'll spend more time on that. We'll talk about it. I think there are some other ways that we can discuss it that may be helpful, that may be beneficial, that maybe will help people understand it. But what we will not do is judge and grade a rushing attack by a reverse. That can't happen. That's not going to be a real thing on the show. I don't care if Greg's here or not. I think he'd be on my side there. Like, that's not going to be a determining factor of team can run the ball. The same thing if we're judging a team's passing attack and they can't complete screens. We're not going to go there. We're not going to do that. He joins us each and every Tuesday at this time. Thanks to our friends at Craneworks. It's the voice of the Auburn Tigers, Andy Burcham.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah! The big dog's got it.
The voice of the Auburn Tigers, Andy Burcham, on Mac and Cube in the Morning is brought to you by Craneworks. Lifted, buy and rented, the big dog's got it. Now, Andy Burcham.
Andy, great to have you in. How much of that did you see coming based on conversations you had with players, staff, and maybe even just feel being at the stadium, specifically on offense Saturday against Vanderbilt?
Listen, there was an energy in practice, and I was at a couple of the different practices last week, and there was an energy, and I think that's natural after the change that Auburn went through. How much change or how much better, how much more improved Auburn would be offensively, I'm not sure, truthfully, outside that building, any of us knew what we would see from an offensive standpoint. But it's the most complete offense that Auburn has played this season against a Power 4 opponent, whether it be the run game with Jeremiah Cobb and Ashton Daniels, or the pass game, which was the best I think we saw all season long, with obviously career games for Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton, and add to that Perry Thompson and Malcolm Simmons as well. I mean, they were the four primary targets, and perhaps should have been all season long for Auburn, for Ashton Daniels in this case. I thought Auburn played inspired on both sides of the ball. Was it a perfect game? Obviously it wasn't. You still had some penalties that killed drives, or on the defensive side, extended drives for Vanderbilt. And credit Diego Pavia and that Vanderbilt offense. I thought if Vanderbilt had kept in its ball control type offense in that game, Auburn might have run away with the win. But when Vandy went to an up-tempo, that to me was the turning point in the game, and all of a sudden it just became a back-and-forth shootout. That, listen, when we were doing our pregame show before that ball game with Jason and Brett Eddins and Brad, not a one of us thought we were going to see a game that ended up being in the 40s and in overtime. We all believed that it would be we all thought it was going to be a close game, but we all thought it was going to be a close, low-scoring game, and obviously we were completely wrong about that. I was encouraged by the way Auburn played against the Vanderbilt team that is legit, and now Auburn has the off week, gets ready for Mercer next Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, and of course the Iron Bowl right after Thanksgiving.
Andy Burcham joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline, brought to us by Craneworks every Tuesday. Sticking with pace, tempo, going a little bit faster, how much do you think that helped this offense against Vanderbilt? Well, we had seen a little bit of it mixed in, but I felt like they were more dedicated to it in this game.
No question about it. And I think also, and you know what, we'll learn a lot more perhaps in the Mercer game, but even more so in the Alabama game, if this is the offense, the Derek Nix type offense for the last couple games of the season. But the move of Mason Murphy to center and then Tutal Miller out to right tackle helped a great deal, I believe, as well. And that's nothing against Cale Ellis. I think he's going to be a terrific center for Auburn. But I think that helped Auburn with the tempo. And you're right, Auburn was dedicated to the tempo. And we didn't see Auburn huddle except coming out of timeouts. And even though there were times where Auburn went to the line of scrimmage, and as Derek Nix said on Tiger Talk last night on Jocks, there were times Auburn went to the line of scrimmage and got a look and then maybe made a change. But still the tempo was, as you put it, it was a dedicated up-tempo offense for Auburn from start to finish.
And it looked different. It felt different. I think it felt simplified, and it felt like to me that staff went to the players, and I don't know previously how this had gone, not gone, whatever, but it felt like they went to those players and said, what do you like? What do you feel good with? Okay, cool. We're going to do a lot of that. We're going to figure out ways to make those work, because it wasn't a large array of plays that they ran. It's not like there were 7 or 8 brand new plays that we haven't seen. I just felt like it was Ashton Daniels, you feel good doing this. Eric Singleton, you feel good running that. We think we can do it against this look. Let's figure out how to make that happen. And off they went.
It was just effective. Regardless of if they polled the players about what do you want to do, whether it was Derek Nix saying, this is what I believe, and he's polling his staff, or a combination of the two. The outcome was it was effective in that game. And now you've got to put another game together when Auburn gets Mercer here in a couple weeks. And then the Iron Bowl, which if Auburn does beat Mercer, the Iron Bowl for the second straight year will determine whether Auburn goes to a bowl game or not. And if all things go as we expect, Alabama's going to be playing for a bid for the college football playoffs. So as if there needs to be anything more, there will be a great deal on the line with the Iron Bowl here in a couple weeks.
Andy Burcham joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline, talking Auburn football. Do you feel like that changed potentially the direction of this coaching search at all?
I don't know. That's a good question, and I don't have an answer for you. It could have. I don't believe it hurt DJ Durkin's chances. I'm guessing that's what you're asking me here right now. But John Cohen continues, and the word I'm getting is that Auburn, that this is a highly valued job in college football right now, probably more so than some believe, or some would lead you to believe at this point. I don't know who's going to end up being Auburn's coach. Is it going to be DJ Durkin? Is it going to be some of the names that you've heard already? I do think Auburn wants to have that coach in place as soon after the Iron Bowl as possible, because of signing day and just to set that program in that direction at that point. But listen, the bottom line is Auburn was a better football team Saturday. Was it enough to win on the road? No. And you've got to take that next step at some point. But that was an encouraging, much more encouraging than any of the other close losses that Auburn has played in this season. And primarily because we saw life out of that offense that we had not seen all season long.
Andy Burcham with us, talking Auburn Vandy from over the weekend, and now Auburn moving forward. DJ Durkin sort of referenced Ashton Daniels' red shirt when we visited with Coach Freeze a couple weeks ago. That was the first that I had heard it being discussed, and he had kind of laid it out. Were they going to go with Ashton Daniels against Missouri? The potential red shirt would then be a problem if he were to get in that game and look good. It kind of aligns itself perfectly now, where Jackson Arnold, Deuce Knight handle this game against Mercer. Ashton Daniels plays against Alabama, and he would have that year to come back. My understanding is that he would want that year. What's the latest that you have on that part of this quarterback situation?
I don't think that if that decision has been made, it has not been made available to us at this point. But you're exactly right. If he plays in both of these last 2 games, talking about Ashton Daniels, then his redshirt year for next year is done. He will have played in 5 games, and you can only play in 4 and preserve a redshirt year. I believe that Ashton Daniels wants to come back and play at Auburn. The way he played Saturday against Vanderbilt would lead me to believe that he's got more football. He's got more college football coming. But to do that, Auburn's got to make a decision, and you would think, that the logical choice would be the Mercer game in a little over a week and a half, that Auburn would use both Jackson Arnold and Deuce Knight, or just Jackson Arnold or Deuce Knight. Doesn't matter. Just a combination or one of those two in that game and hold Ashton Daniels out and then bring him back for the Iron Bowl. And then if Auburn does play in a bowl game, I don't believe that counts as with regard to the red shirt anyway. So that will be a question that is asked of DJ Durkin, I'm sure, tomorrow on the SEC teleconference. We did not have him on Tiger Talk, and that was scheduled from the start. We had Derek Nix and Wesley McGriff on Tiger Talk last night. But the next time that he meets with the full media in Auburn right now is Monday at his press conference prior to the Mercer game, and I'm sure that will be one of the first questions asked if he doesn't address that immediately. But that is an intriguing decision that Auburn and Ashton Daniels have with regard to the Mercer game, isn't it?
It is. I want to ask you this question, and there's nothing specific I'm going for here, just kind of you being around it. Because we haven't had a real peek behind the curtain yet, but give me some things that you've heard about DJ Durkin since he's taken this interim tag over. How he's managed the team, handled the team, things that he said, why you think maybe guys are a little more motivated to go play for him. What are some of the things that people are saying or that you've heard he's done behind the scenes there since he became the interim head coach?
Well, I heard Wesley McGriff mention it last night on Tiger Talk. I've heard John Cohen in other interviews talk about it as well, how incredibly organized DJ Durkin is. And watching him in practice, obviously, he was more involved with the entire team, and that's just natural. I mean, as the interim head coach, and he would have been with the defense just as the defensive coordinator. So that's a couple things that I've seen. I think it helps DJ Durkin that he has been through this before, not only as a head coach, but an interim coach as well. So he has been through that type of transition, although I'm sure last week was still a bit of a whirlwind for him moving from defensive coordinator to the interim head coach. The defense has loved playing for him all along. That has never changed. I think the offense last week responded to Derek Nix as the offensive coordinator. Now, is it the same moving forward? We'll find that out. And you know what? It's not a huge surprise that Auburn played more inspired. I mean, a lot of times you see that with a change. It's not all the time, but a lot of times you will see that in the middle of a season. I mean, you were there the night that Carnell was the interim head coach, that Texas A&M game. Heck, Auburn played inspired the week before when the Tigers lost in overtime at Mississippi State in Carnell's first game as the interim head coach. So that didn't surprise me. And I think these guys like DJ Durkin. I think they like playing for him. He's very challenged, and it's not because he's their buddy. He challenges his team. And I think they're inspired by playing for him. They were on Saturday. That's the one thing that was evident to me. And he let the offense do its work. He certainly had a say so in how things were done. I mean, they did have a decision last week to make with regard to who was going to be the starting quarterback, and they went with Ashton Daniels, and he was very, very good in that game and ran that offense very well, both with his passing game and his run game, and the decisions that he made for Auburn as well. Now, there are some things to clean up. There's no question about that. Penalties and costly penalties continue to be a problem at times for this ball club. That has to be cleaned up before you get to Mercer, and then, of course, you get to the Iron Bowl. But it was an inspired football team that played in spite of the loss this past week, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Andy, great stuff, man. Appreciate the time. We always enjoy catching up with you. You know, each and every week you're brought to us by Craneworks.
And Craneworks is the most trusted name for crane and equipment rentals in the Southeast for over 30 years. They have a fleet of cranes ranging from 2.5 tons to 500 tons. Craneworks also offers trained and certified operators and riggers to make sure the job is done right. Locations in Birmingham, Nashville, Mobile, and Huntsville. Visit craneworks.com for more info. All right, I've got basketball this Saturday or Sunday. We'll be there in Birmingham at Legacy Arena, Auburn and Houston at 2 o'clock in what should be a great game. Houston ranked number 1 in the AP poll, number 2 in the coaches poll, or vice versa, after the Wofford game tonight. Where are you this weekend, young Cole?
I will be near your old stomping grounds in Columbia, Missouri.
Oh, in Como.
In Como.
Have a good time in Como. You may have to take some layers.
It's actually supposed to be 75 at kick.
Unbelievable.
Exactly. I'd rather
Should
have
be
it
a
cold.
beautiful day for football at Faroe Field then.
We will see. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate the time.
All right, buddy. Take care. Have a great day. War Eagle.
War Eagle. Andy Burcham on the Higginbotham Hotline, brought to us by Craneworks. Josh Pate, some college football guy, joins the show next right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 8:19, Tuesday, November 11th. Let's get right to Josh Pate joining us now on the Higginbotham Hotline. I think he's got a show out there you can find in the interwebs somewhere. I'm sure it's out there. If you like college football, search Josh Pate, and maybe you'll come across something. We had a conversation about Lane Kiffin's name now being mentioned for the Giants a little bit earlier in the show, and that brought us back to him potentially going other places or him potentially staying, to which then we came to ingredients for a national championship. If we were starting from scratch and we were using the logic of Lane Kiffin maybe staying at Ole Miss or having to leave Ole Miss because he needs the ingredients to win a national championship, how would you balance those out as to what the starting points would be of, does Ole Miss have this or does he have to go somewhere else to get this?
Did you already answer this question, or am I going and then you're going to piggyback off of that?
If you're asking if I'm going to steal your answers, the answer to that is no. I don't need to do that. I gave it a shot, but I think some of it is still open for interpretation. So I'll allow you to take the floor.
Okay. Your answer itself is open for interpretation. I think you got everything you need to win a national championship here and moving forward at Ole Miss. People will push back on that, I assume. So to anyone who pushes back on that, I would ask, don't speak in the abstract. Give me the specific things that are necessary to win a national title, and here's the important part, in 2025 and beyond, that you lack at Ole Miss. I don't care about stadium size because theirs is plenty big enough. I don't care about the hardware in the trophy case because that's 99% irrelevant. And even if you think that's reflective of failure to invest in the past, that's like a bigger-brained answer. I would ask the bigger-brained crowd. If you think lack of hardware in the trophy case is a reflection that in the past there hasn't been proper investment, therefore there isn't now and in the future, I would ask, number one, again, give me specifics. Number two, do you feel that way about Texas A&M? Texas A&M looks like they're in the thick of everything, and their trophy case is every bit as barren as Ole Miss is. So first and foremost, you know this as well as I do. I think I'm more speaking maybe through the microphone here to anyone in the audience that doesn't believe this. You know what the first question is out of every one of these guys' mouths these days, and that is, what is your NIL infrastructure? That's it. They don't care about anything else other than that. Now, right after that, if you answer a question to their satisfaction, then it's, all right, well, is there proper alignment? And alignment's a really popular buzzword right now, but that just means, do we have smart, right people in place, and are they all singing from the same hymnal? And if that answer is yes, really, it comes down to personal preference at that point. Do I want to live in warm weather or cold weather? Where does my wife's family reside? Do we own a vacation property within 3-hour radius of this job? Other than that, it's good to go, man. Like, do I like the team colors? Like, if that's really what it comes down to, that's what it comes down to in terms of personal preference. But it takes NIL, it takes money to pay players. It takes money to hire a staff, which it always has. And then it takes alignment. And if you have those three things, dude, you could have those three things at Kentucky today that you haven't had in the past, and you could win a national title at Kentucky. I just think we're so new in that landscape. Like, we're right here on the frontier. We just got here. No one's even built houses anywhere, that people are looking around saying, well, this place looks totally vacant. There's no way we could build a community here. Yes, you can. It's just that you just got here, so it looks like you can't. We just got to this new era of college football. Therefore, people who may be 37 years old, 47 years old, 57 years old, and you've grown up with the world being one way, you don't get that the world has changed. Now, that sounded a little preachy, I know. So pick it apart. Where am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. And actually, I use an analogy that you'll greatly appreciate, and essentially saying that in this, let's call it national championship contender airspace, which not many people can fly. So essentially elite air travel, of which you experience every weekend and some of us don't. So I know that you'll greatly understand how this operates. Some of the teams that you mentioned are now flying there, or at least on the runway ready to take off. You brought up Texas A&M. What about Indiana? Texas Tech? I mean, are they not sort of new to this party? We may even include Vanderbilt, which I wouldn't include them long term. I would say once this wave of players is gone, I need to see you do it again. But we're not really talking sustainability. We're just talking ability to be able to get into this airspace, which is get into the playoff and then have a shot to win a couple of games. I also look at just, Josh, the fact of how much that roster has turned over and not completely fallen off the face of the earth year after year after year. In some instances, it's gotten better. The one thing that I would say about Lane and Ole Miss with the way he operates right now, my biggest concern might be the portal going to one window. And is he going to have the Trinidad Chamblises or other players that have helped him in a later portal window? Are they going to be able to adjust to that? I think they could figure it out, but that would actually be my biggest concern, is that he's not going to have that extra portal window.
I believe Trinidad Chambly is the plural of Chambliss that you're looking for there. Hey, is anyone asking this question? Okay, I'll cede all your points there. Like, I agree with all that. Let's work off that. You know what's really the best mind game that Lane Kiffin, people who represent him, people who talk about him have played in this whole cycle is I keep noticing everyone's asking, can you win a national title at Ole Miss? Because we know you can win one at Florida. We know you can win one at LSU. If you go to the NFL, whatever. Has anyone stopped to ask whether Lane Kiffin can win a national title? Has anyone stopped to ask whether Lane Kiffin can succeed in the playoff? Because as far as I can tell, the dude hasn't gotten there as a head coach on his own. And this is not me knocking him. It's me saying, look, if me here at Pate State, if I check all the boxes, if I've got all the parameters in place to win a national title, and 37 coaches before me have won a national title, I'm asking, if I plug Lane into this driver's seat here, where's he proven that he can win a national title? Like, is that unfair? I mean, am I going a little out of bounds there? I guess you can't afford to ask those questions right now because he's so in demand that anyone who is perceived as doubting him in any shape, form, or fashion fears removing themselves from the sweepstakes. And by the way, here's the follow-up that I think proves the point that we're making about how good you could have it at Ole Miss or Indiana or wherever. If Lane were to leave Ole Miss, I know you and I have thrown Pete Golding's name around there. Would he just backfill as the head coach? But let's say Pete wasn't there. He wasn't in the equation, and the Ole Miss job really did come on the market. I don't think people have a slightest idea how in demand that job would be. Like, that's some of the questions that I've asked people in preparation for if Lane were to leave Ole Miss. I've asked, how desirable would that job be? And the people in the representative world just kind of get this grin on their face and their eyes get wide and they say, oh, buddy, oh, it would be very much in demand. So if that's the answer there, I think that's the answer to the question, can you win a national title at Ole Miss?
So how much intrigue will you have with these rankings tonight? I understand big picture, we have a ways to go. It doesn't decide anything, but I think our first drama shows up tonight with Texas A&M. And if they were to leapfrog Indiana, maybe somehow leapfrog both. I don't think the committee wants to admit that they were that wrong this early and autocorrect itself after just 1 week of rankings, so I don't think there's any way they go to one. I understand Indiana didn't look great against Penn State, but when you actually put the 2-3 resumes against one another, there is this perception that A&M's is like leaps and bounds ahead of Indiana's and Ohio State's, and I actually don't think it isn't. I think it's pretty close. And I think we would all agree Alabama's is probably better than all three of theirs, but they do have the loss. And I think Illinois, if you were to actually just go like numerical system with how you ranked games, Indiana, they actually might be ahead of Ohio State and Texas A&M, depending on how you looked at it. Where is your interest level with how this plays out tonight, and what do you think it should be?
Yeah, so my gut reaction after Saturday was, oh, you got to put A&M number 2. I still kind of feel that way. Let's see if they agree with that. So like you just said, there's another thing that I'm paying attention to. How far does Brigham Young fall? Where were they, 8? Do you remember last week? I know they were top 10. How high were they?
They fell 4 spaces last week in the AP poll.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, like, what was their playoff ranking last week?
7
they were
or 8.
8, right? 7 or 8, something like that. Yeah, so they fell 4 spots in the AP. I want to see if the playoff committee reflects that tonight, because I view some of these teams. Georgia Tech was a good example. Greg was talking about this last week leading up to the initial playoff rankings. He said, Georgia Tech is really going to be the canary in the coal mine here because they just dropped a lot in the AP. Let's see if they drop a lot. Let's see how high they are in the playoff committee rankings, because that's going to reflect how steadfast they are behind their new methodology. Well, I feel the same way about Brigham Young. Brigham Young, as long as they were undefeated, I didn't have that huge an issue with them being propped up in the top 10 despite having an inferior strength of schedule, strength of record compared to the big boys. However, I think there's a lot of inflation that goes on there that as soon as you lose, and especially if you lose convincingly like they did, and they were lucky the game was even as close as 29-7, I think that pops a bubble that otherwise has not been inflated with other quality data points, and you stand to fall further. It's like dry air cools a whole lot quicker than moist air does. You know that. I've explained that to you many times. So the temperature in the desert falls really quick at night, whereas in the South, it falls, but it doesn't fall as fast. Well, I think if you don't have a strong strength of record, should fall like that once you lose a game. But in the AP, they didn't. They fell 4 spots. So I was looking at some of the projections earlier this morning. If they're only 12th, I wonder what kind of message that's sending about how serious the committee is about all these new frameworks and whatnot. And then the other thing is, if I sit here tonight and I listen to the committee say that, oh, the Texas A&M win against Missouri was okay, but we all know that Missouri had a backup quarterback, so they're not really a top 25 caliber team, even though they themselves, knowing Missouri's quarterback was out, ranked Missouri top 25 last week, it will drive me up a wall. I cannot stand when people in a room rank a team. Then you go and beat that ranked team. And then they try and tell you, good job, but we all know that team wasn't really top 25. Do we all know that? I don't think you all knew that. And then the follow-up to that is I am also going to sit there and I'm going to listen to the committee say, now, Alabama's win over Missouri is a whole lot better than A&M's because Alabama beat Missouri with their starting quarterback, whereas Missouri was lesser a team by the time A&M played them. Hey, let's follow that logic to a conclusion. Because the same group of people is going to tell me Oregon's win over Penn State has lost value. And I would ask, but hasn't Penn State dropped off precipitously in quality of team since they lost their quarterback, and their head coach after what Oregon put on them? And at that point, we're out of time and we got to go to break and we don't even get an answer.
It's going to be maybe more intriguing than we've seen in a while, not the very end to see actually who gets in, but I think this might be the first real drama earlier in the season that we've had with these rankings. Before we get to break, and you're going to hang out with a little bit longer after that, I want to ask you this. You gave me a very intriguing scenario with the ACC 2 weeks ago about how it could potentially play out and maybe what other conferences would want. So I'm going to give you the break to think about this, and then when we come back, we'll have the discussion. As it pertains to the SEC championship game, A&M wins out they're in, Bama wins out they're in, Georgia needs to win out and A&M to lose. Ole Miss needs to win out and a little bit of help. Texas needs to win out and a little bit of help. Oklahoma needs to win out and get a lot of help. But those are the teams that have a chance to get in. What's the best case? What's the worst case scenario for the actual SEC with its conference championship game this year? We'll discuss that with Josh next right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Going to continue one more segment with Josh Pate on the Higginbotham Hotline. So I asked a question before we went to break. SEC championship game, because you laid this out in the ACC a couple weeks ago, and it was wild to think about how many teams not only could make it, but then could win it and then get into the playoff, and that potentially could take a bit away from another league and push multiple teams that people thought would be going to the playoff from that league out. SEC now a little bit similar. I don't know how many teams will actually be playing their way out, but what do you think the SEC needs to happen most, and what would be the worst case scenario for the SEC as far as teams getting in and maybe team winning?
I'm trying to think because, all right, so what we're looking at is the teams you laid out before the break. I mean, A&M and Alabama have the inside tracks right now. If that just went on to play out, but Texas, let me think. So Vanderbilt's the important part of the equation here. Vanderbilt's the edge of the bubble. If anything else above that bubble happens, but Vandy wins out, like Vandy is in the playoff, I think, if they win out. Maybe some people would dispute that, but they're 10-2. They would wrap their season with a win over Tennessee in Knoxville. I think they're in. All right, I'm thinking about everybody above them. Bama in, A&M in, Georgia in, Ole Miss in. I guess the next part of that equation is what happens with Texas, what happens with OU, because you're going to have situations this weekend. Both of them are rested going to Georgia and Alabama, which is a talking point people won't even pick up on until Friday. So if they one or both lose this weekend, they are 3-loss teams. Especially with Texas, it sounds like if they beat A&M at the end of the year, they're still going to be right there in the equation. So I guess maybe the worst case for the SEC would be having Texas and OU lose this weekend, but then the dominoes not falling elsewhere, where they have a 3-loss team that gets left just outside the bubble. The other side of that equation is if Texas and or OU win this weekend, like if Texas and OU win out and Vandy wins out, you are legit looking at 7 SEC teams that are in the playoff mix or in the playoff outright. And before people chuckle at that, go look. You'd have everybody would be 2 losses or fewer. And the working theory out there is a 2-loss SEC team isn't getting left out. So you'd have 7 of them, 2 losses or fewer. And although this still remains somewhat unlikely, it grows in likelihood by the week. We've only got 3 games left on people's schedules. Vandy only has 2 left. So I guess I'm almost thinking it doesn't matter what happens with the conference championship game. It matters what happens with Texas, OU, and Vandy. That's really the 3 I'm looking at.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any doubt. It's interesting to see who would benefit most from certain teams either winning out. And that's the thing, is some of these teams that have to win out, it's going to hurt the other teams, either their potential to get into the SEC championship game or into the college football playoff. So, and I know we have.
By the way,
go ahead.
Just let me hit you with one thing. So Cannell's been broken for months with the state of the ACC, but I was doing their radio show yesterday morning, and for the first time, someone floated this idea to me, and it sounds crazy, but it's actually not if you look at it. There is a chance the ACC gets left out entirely of the playoff. And the way it would happen is not crazy. So Duke is sitting there 8-4 right now. Duke only has 1 conference loss. So, I mean, if Duke just wins their remaining games, gets into the ACC title game and wins it, there is a distinct possibility that James Madison from the Sun Belt and like Tulane or USF from the American are both higher ranked conference champs than the ACC's conference champion. And at that point, the ACC conference champion making it in, and they don't have an at-large team. Like, there is a legit world right now where the ACC just doesn't make the playoff.
That's insane to think about, and definitely have not had that thrown my way. I don't feel like that's likely. Do you at all?
I don't think it's likely, only because you would have to think like maybe an SMU or someone, maybe Pitt. I don't know, like maybe Georgia Tech. Maybe someone rises enough as an at-large. But I'm just saying, what, Louisville, Miami? I guess Miami would be the hope. Miami, you hope, just rises to the 10 seed or something like that, and they make it in as a charity at large. So, yeah, I would say it's unlikely. But the thing you're counting on is you're counting on someone to plant the flag in November. there is not a single team in the ACC you can count on. Like Louisville let Cal come in there and win the other night. Miami's already dropped 2 as double-digit favorites. Virginia, reeling. Georgia Tech, we saw what happened against NC State. SMU is good win against Boston College, but like they've still got some tough games. I don't know who it would be that I would for sure just circle and say, all right, I can count on them.
All right, I want to go back to the actual playoff this year for a moment, because another thing that we brought up when we were going through our parameters or ingredients to win a national championship earlier in the show was, don't we have more contenders this year than last year entering the season? Because last year I think we looked at it and said, oh, no, there's 3, maybe 4 teams. It'll be one of these 4, no doubt about it. This year we came in saying, well, there doesn't seem to be one of those teams, so it's wide open, 8, 9, 10, whatever it is. How many teams, as you look at it right now, could you realistically make a case in your own mind for getting into and winning a couple of games and taking home a national championship in all of college football?
Oh, so everything hinges on Ohio State for this answer. If you think Ohio State is what they have looked like, that answer is very small. If nothing else changes about the picture other than Ohio State's a little more flawed than we know, and they just hadn't had a chance to be exposed yet, then it's wide open, because the answer is Ohio State can, Indiana can, A&M can, Bama can, Georgia can, Oregon, especially if they get healthy and peak later in the year, they can. I think Notre Dame can. Where do you go on Ole Miss? If the picture's open, do you think Ole Miss could win 3 games if they needed to in the postseason?
With the right draw, yes.
All right, so I agree with you. Let's throw Ole Miss in there. Texas and OU.
I actually think Oklahoma with the right draw could go do it, because you got a takeover guy on offense and a front 7 that can dominate a game.
All right. Well, would you say the same thing about Texas? Again, if the landscape's a little more open.
No, I don't think so.
Well, here's the problem with that. As we sit here today, I may agree with you. But if Texas is in, that means they've either beaten Georgia on the road or they beat A&M. So their profile continues to raise. Like they showed you something in one of those games, unless it was like +5 turnovers and it was weird. So I got to see how they won those games. And did they lose the other one in a dogfight, or did they get handled?
Totally fair. I look at Oklahoma's strengths being that much stronger than any real strength Texas has. Like, I love Texas's edges on defense. I love their inside linebacker, but collectively that front 7, that front 4-3, however Oklahoma's lining up, I think they are ahead, way ahead pretty much of what Texas has there. And then John Mateer, individually, I put ahead of any one thing Texas has on offense. Now, we saw Ryan Wingo a couple weeks ago finally show up and look like that guy, but he hasn't been that all year. So I just look at those 2 individual things with Oklahoma. Now, a lot more has to go right for that to actually happen than some of the other teams. I don't know if Texas has strengths that are that strong. Like, I think there's more kryptonite that can affect Texas than there is Oklahoma, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. So let's say conservatively we eliminate Texas. We keep Oklahoma there in that batch. We just went 10 teams deep, I think.
And unfortunately, the likelihood of all 10 of those teams getting in is slim.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about USC. I wouldn't put them in there. But we didn't talk about Utah. I wouldn't put them in there. But those are 2 other teams that not bad teams right now.
Here's a fun one. Miami.
I don't think I could trust them to rattle off 3 of them in high leverage situations. Also, coaching matchups matter at a premium in that tournament, and I don't know that I could count on Miami to rattle off 3 in a row like that.
I actually agree with that, but not completely out of the question. Like, from what's going to be on the field, could actually see them, like Ruben Bain taking over a game, that offensive line taking over a game, Carson Beck having 2 great games. Now, he can have a bad game, but from those perspectives, I could see him getting in and pulling it off. Like, they have the overall ability to go do it. There are intangibles that you mentioned.
Yeah, the roster, if healthy, like if relatively healthy, the roster would be good enough. I think my doubt more would be just strictly the coaching matchups, staff versus staff, 3 in a row. Because as good as Miami's players would be, that's what gives you comfort, sometimes falsely, that they could win ACC games, because they could just go out-talent people, you'd put them in waters there where they're not going to go strictly out-talent teams. They've got to out-coach Oregon. They got to out-coach Alabama. They got to out-coach Ohio State. And they got to probably stack 2 or 3 of those games in a row. And I'd have to see that happen to believe it right now.
I'm with you. I mean, that's what makes a great team. Coaching, scheme, being able to handle situations. It's not just talent that goes out there and gets wins. We appreciate the time greatly. Thank you so much. Where is your tour heading this weekend?
We're going to go to Athens, Georgia for the Texas versus Georgia game.
I feel like that's just like some home cooking. You just kind of wanted to give back to your neck of the woods, but it's okay. I mean, Mississippi State and Missouri was right there on the table.
It was. Oh, by the way, to address the little jab to the ribs you gave me earlier, I'll have you know, when we were on our way back from Lubbock this past Saturday, we couldn't even land at Nashville International. We had to redirect to the other airport, John Toon Airport, over on the northwest side of town. So everyone's struggling, buddy. It's not just you. Every one of us is struggling right now.
It feels like the exact same problem of not being able to land in Lexington and having to go to Cincinnati at 11:45 at night. Just exactly the same.
Yeah, one of us is a little more showy, likes to take pictures with Major League mascots in our downtime than the other. I suffer in silence. You suffer in the spotlight.
That's fair. That's fair. And most people would trade. But not me. I'm going to keep grinding. Thank you, Josh.
I will see you Thursday night. How about that?
That sounds great. We appreciate your time.
All right. Love you too.
Josh Pate's College Football Show, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, go check that out. Higginbotham Hotlines, where he joined us. We'll follow up on some of those conversations we had with him and more next right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. When you start thinking about those SEC championship game possibilities and what's left on the schedule, I think collectively we figure out just a little bit how massive some of these games are coming up in the next few weeks. Like this Alabama-Oklahoma game this weekend is huge.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. Oklahoma is essentially out of the SEC championship game and the playoff if they drop this game. We know where Alabama sits right now. They win and they're in the SEC championship game. If Alabama gets in the SEC championship game, they're in the playoff, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see a way that they play themselves out on that stage. You also look at what Texas has left. Georgia this weekend, Josh just said his traveling college football circus will be there this weekend. That's a massive game as well. And maybe not even just for Texas. I think that's sort of the scope that people are viewing that game in right now is Texas. Obviously, Georgia, Arkansas, A&M left. Talking about them getting to the SEC championship game and then what they have to do to get to the playoff. But also with Georgia, keep in mind, Georgia drops this game to Texas. That would make them 8-2. Then they would have Charlotte. I think they'll be okay there. But an 8-2 Georgia playing at Georgia Tech, college football playoff berth on the line. Now, you would most likely, well, I'm not going to, Georgia Tech at BC this weekend. This is one we circled a couple weeks ago and said, careful, going up there this time of year, be very careful. Then a very dangerous Pitt team, and then you would have Georgia. But if Georgia Tech gets through these games, in that scenario, are you looking at essentially a college football playoff play-in game?
Probably.
Because if Georgia Tech wins out, say they win their next three, they're 11-1. I put them in the category I just put Alabama in. They go to the ACC championship game in the college football playoff.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that game is massive. And then you would get, like, I was down the road a little bit, Ole Miss, Florida. After what I saw in the second half, I thought that game was going to be dangerous for a while. Right now, I can't look at that game that way. And then I do think Ole Miss, Mississippi State has a chance to be huge. I think Mississippi State has a shot in that game. They could be playing for bowl eligibility, which is another conversation that we're going to have after the break. Chris Plank coming up at 9:20, and he'll talk to us about this Bama-Oklahoma game coming up this weekend. Gusty Goulas and the Gusty Goulas Group can help you get into a new home. It's easy, for them at least. Why? Well, they've served more than 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the greater Birmingham area. They're brokered by eXp Realty. Gusty Goulas Group, recognized both nationally and locally as Greater Birmingham, Alabama's #1 team in homes sold since 2012. If you were to Google Gusty Goulas Group right now, you would see over 850 five-star Google reviews. There's not a lot of folks anywhere, any business that can say that. Most agents are going to start marketing after you list with them, not Gusty. His aggressive, improving selling system has what it takes to attract all those qualified buyers that are going to want your home. And you can go to GustyGoulasGroup.com right now, button at the top right of the page, smash that, very little information, find out what your home's worth. 205-542-1996. 205-542-1996. Google Gusty Goulas Group, or just go to GustyGoulasGroup.com today and start packing. So some of the scenarios that are out there with the SEC championship game, how it's going to affect the playoff. I mean, you just look ahead. We mentioned Georgia Tech is going to be huge. The Iron Bowl could be big for Alabama. Texas A&M, Texas. I don't even want to consider what the scope of that game is going to be, the stage that game's going to be on, if Texas somehow knocks off Georgia and Arkansas. And I know the Arkansas thing, we're like, eye roll, whatever. That's a big game for Arkansas fans. That's a big game for both those fan bases. There will be emotions involved in that game. And I say that mainly with the thought process of Texas getting past Georgia, which I'll just say right now, I don't like this matchup for Texas at all. And I was thinking about my answer to Josh there, Saber, on Oklahoma and Texas and both teams being able to win a national championship. Is the thought crazy that if you gave me those two teams right now on an equal footing, we don't know what the path in front of them, like who would you take to go win a national title starting the playoff, that I would lean Oklahoma there?
It feels a little odd given what Texas has done over the last couple of weeks, but you got to look at how they've been the whole season. And that, yeah, Texas has come on late, but Oklahoma's never really gone away. So, yeah, I think I'd ride with you on that.
Yeah, I'm not worried about bloody hand John Mateer just coming back against Texas in that game and how that went on a neutral site. Like, that's okay, whatever. I also know that I saw Texas's defense be bludgeoned by Florida. Like, that happened. I also saw Texas's offense be inept against Kentucky. That happened. Also saw Mississippi State basically go air raid in the second half against that defense. And then we could say the same thing about Vanderbilt, right? Did Vanderbilt not move the ball through the air on them?
They did.
And that was the game that Texas needed to get them in. That's why they got them in that style game to be able to win it. But then playing your style game, you let Vanderbilt come back and be in it late. Give me the defensive line that not a lot of people can do anything about, and the quarterback that at times no one has been able to do anything about. On that setting, on that stage, I guess that what I'm saying is there's not a lot of things that Texas has that I know they can just lean on in a 3 or 4 game setting. So I'll take the Oklahoma's not many people can do things about that to go win a national title instead.